This is John Abrams, and this is The Variety Artist, episode 50. Episode number 50. Wow, 50 episodes. When I started this adventure in April of 2018, I had no idea that I'd be interviewing the very best of the best. People that I grew up idolizing. People that I had only read about in magazines. I've been fortunate enough to do just that. And I've been able to share them with you. 50 episodes, 50 interviews. If you haven't listened to all of them, go on back and check it out. You can hear Doug Shear talk about doing school assemblies. Robert Bax fill us in on promoting yourself during your show. Christopher T. Magician tells us how to be more funny. Steve Axtell, Steve Petra, Bob Fitch, and many, many more. They're all really fun with amazing info. Well, today is no different. In fact, I picked the perfect person for my 50th episode. It's Danny Orleans talking all about performing at trade shows. Danny leaves no stone unturned. I learned a lot, and I think you will too. Oh, by the way, Danny is an amazing magician, but the info he shares with us here will work for any type of variety artist.
Welcome to The Variety Artist, providing aspiring artists and entertainers with in-depth discussions from top performers from all over the world. So get ready to book some gigs, make some money, and have some fun with your host, John Abrams.
Some of you will know him as the Amaze Kids guy. Others know him as a corporate magician that specializes in trade shows. His client list reads like a who's who of Fortune 500 companies. Variety artist, I give you Danny Orleans. How you doing, Danny?
I'm great. I'm really looking forward to the podcast today.
Me too, thanks. Now, we all know you, or a lot of us know you as the Amaze Kids guy. What were you doing when you first started?
Well, I've been a professional magician doing magic for money since I was 12 years old. So, my original work in the 1960s and 1970s was kids' birthday parties in New Jersey. A lot of guys started out that way. The magic set when they were 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. Had enough guts to try doing kids' parties when I was 12 years old, and it went really well. So I did that all through high school. And when I went to college, in Chicago, I continued doing that. I lived in a suburb of Chicago and was very close to the wealthy suburbs on the North Shore of Chicago. So I just put an ad in the paper, Northwestern Elementary School education major will do a magic show at your kid's birthday party. Those credits really held a lot of weight to people in the Chicago area. By the time I graduated college in 1976, I was doing between 15 and 20 birthday parties a month on the weekends.
Oh, my.
And it's interesting to think in terms of money, how that translated financially. I was making enough money to pay for college tuition.
Wow. And you're a youngster. You're just in college at the time.
Right. Now, I didn't. My father had put enough money away, but just to give you a point of reference, that it was enough money to pay for college at one of the most expensive schools in the country at the time.
Nice.
When I finished college, I became an elementary school teacher for 2 years.
Oh.
I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't know that.
I have a degree in education. I taught 8th grade algebra and 6th grade math for 1 year.
Okay, wait. The money had to be better doing magic than teaching, or was it?
Correct. No, it was. Actually. And it was really weird for me to be making about $5,000. I made no, you're wrong. You're wrong. The money was not better.
Oh.
Money was not better so you're thinking in dollars, you're thinking in dollars now. When I say kids' birthday parties, making enough money to pay for college, you're thinking, $40,000-$50,000 a year. No, 1976, right? 1976, the going rate for a magic show was $25.
Oh.
College at Northwestern cost $5,000. Where now it's 10 times that.
Yeah.
I made about $5,000 a year, but when I started teaching, I think my salary was $8,400 a year, and I had summers off. So I figured, this was going to be better for me, and I'd still do magic on the weekends. And I did some of that, but very little, because once I started teaching, that became very all-encompassing.
Yeah.
But I taught for 2 years, and then the first year, older children, junior high school kids, And then the next year I taught nursery school.
Oh, did you?
And I loved doing that. And I became very good at it. Very, very good with young children. Because I had all this experience doing magic shows for 4, 5, and 6-year-olds. So I was great with little kids. And I did that for another year. But these were the times when it was really hard to get a teaching job because schools were closing because the population was dwindling. Mm-hmm. With the baby boomers now being past their point of being born, population actually dwindling.
Yeah, I heard a stat the other day, not to interrupt you, but I heard a stat the other day that millennials just passed up baby boomers as far as population goes.
Mm-hmm.
Just heard that yesterday.
Right. So what happened then is that population of children began to dwindle to the point where schools had to close, and even tenured teachers, in order to keep them on tenure, they became librarians and different kinds of jobs. And they really were, it was very hard to get a teaching job. You know, the only reason a teacher would go away is to have a maternity leave. And that's how I got my jobs. And each year I was replacing some teacher on maternity leave.
I thought you were going to say I was coming back from maternity leave. And I'm like, hey, wait, hold on. Is there something we need to know about here? Well, now we're going to get all into trade shows. But before we do, can someone go to amazekids.com?
Absolutely. So I took all this experience that I had doing shows at kids' birthday parties. And then after I taught for 2 years, I went on tour doing school shows. I put together an elementary school show. I moved forward with that and started to tour all around the country in the 1980s.
Oh.
I was doing, I do 20 school shows a week. I did every school in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, every school in New Orleans, every school in Louisville, Kentucky. And I get these school tours. And then from then, I did that during the 1980s. I met my wife. We put together a larger show that we now did in theaters, children's museums that had auditoriums and theaters, bigger venues, even up to 1,000, 2,000 people.
Oh, nice.
I've taken that knowledge and all those years of touring and my expertise as an elementary school teacher to become the face for a website that is actually run by Joshua J. and Andy Gladwin of Vanishing Ink Magic.
Okay.
We being AmazeKids.com is kind of spawned from there. So I have the back end of their technological skills, but the front end of my knowledge. So I choose the magic tricks that go on that are specifically designed for your listeners that specialize in magic for children and for families. And that's what that website is all about. I'm very proud of what we've done on there. We have a lot of things that are on that website that you can't get anywhere else. And there's tons of free downloads because at the end of the day, I want magicians who are performing for children be as good as they can possibly be, because today's kids' audiences are tomorrow's adult audiences, right? So we want them liking magic now, so they like magic when they're all grown up too.
Truly.
Yes, if you go to amazekids.com, go to the free downloads area, there's at least 20 free downloads. Some of them are tricks, some of them are portions of books that we've published, portions of ebooks, and some video of me working and talking about managing children and managing very, very young audiences.
AmazeKids.com. Get those free downloads and take a look at all the stuff you have there.
Great, thanks.
Perfect. Now, how did you transition from going from, well, I know you went from kids' parties to with your wife doing the corporate events, and how did you transition into trade shows?
So that happened after I started to learn close-up magic. Very, very fortunate. I discovered in the late 1970s that I lived 2 blocks away from Eugene Berger.
Oh.
And when we met each other at a lecture at Magic Incorporated, we became fast friends very, very quickly. I'm living 2 blocks away from him. I started taking lessons with him and hanging out with him immediately. So during the mid and late 1980s 80s, I became quite good at close-up magic and started doing gigs. Then I got a gig at a French restaurant in the early 1990s where, once you start doing restaurant magic, then you just really work out the fine points of performing magic routines, and you learn how to go from one to the other. So by the early 1990s, I was ready to do a trade show. And I'd seen magicians like Eddie Tulloch and Paul Gertner at these events and really felt it would be a good fit for me.
How did you market your trade shows at the very beginning?
Well, I didn't. I did not market it in the very beginning at all. I just marketed myself as a close-up magician.
Okay, so how did you get that first call for a trade show?
Right. So the first call came from a magician from the Milwaukee area, whose name I don't even remember, but he had done a trade show for this printing company. Now, I'm not talking about your local neighborhood printer. I'm talking about a printing company. It's not a household name, but at the time it was the second largest printing company in the world.
Nice.
So we've all heard of R.R. Donnelley. Those of us that are old enough to remember, they printed the phone book.
The Donnelley Yellow Pages.
Right, the Donnelley Yellow Pages. But they printed a lot of other things too. They printed magazines. They printed catalogs. They printed newspapers. They printed a lot of the junk mail that you get. So the second biggest company was a company called Quebecor Printing. So that the province of Quebec with an O-R at the end. And they were the second biggest company in the world. They had a trade show that happened to be in Chicago. And they had used this other guy the year before. And he wasn't available. And he knew me through another magician in the Milwaukee area. You have to remember, this is 1992, I think. Pre-internet. So things like word of mouth and direct mail were really the ways that we stayed and got gigs back then. Mm-hmm. And it was just a referral. And she called me up and she said she had this trade show booth and she was doing the show at the Hilton Hotel in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And she had a whole theme all picked out, see? So I didn't have to talk her into anything. She had this theme, stack the deck. Because if you stack the deck with Quebecor Printing, you would have an advantage and you'd be getting the best printer to print whatever. I think it was the catalog show. So to print your catalog, you should use Quebecor Printing and you'd be stacking the deck. So she had these giveaways of these decks of cards. She wanted a magician. She thought it was perfect. And she had a good experience the year before. So it was just a matter of working out the price. She didn't need to see references because I had been referred by last year's magician.
And it was the perfect fit for you, especially for your first one.
Well, it was in terms of getting it. And I felt like I was ready because in my mind, I had thought a lot about how I would incorporate a company's message into a magic show.
So you get to that first gig, the first trade show. What was that like? Were you nervous for the first one, or how did that work out?
I was excited. I was very excited because the woman's booth was not super big. It was a small trade show, maybe 1,000 to 2,000 attendees.
Oh, yeah.
But most trade shows can have anywhere from 500 people to 150,000 people. This was a relatively small show. It wasn't at a major convention center. It was in a hotel, large hotel meeting room, and there was maybe 50 booths as opposed to 1,000 booths. And most of the booths were 10 feet by 20 feet. They weren't really big. Some of them were smaller, 10 by 10. So it felt like a really good one for me to start at. It was great. It was very exciting, and I was an instant hit. The first presentation, I was able to gather a crowd. The client was thrilled. I worked the show. I had a little sound system. A crowd gathered around, and it was enormously successful.
Oh, sound system. What are the rules for sound systems, by the way?
At different trade shows, there's different rules. Almost all trade shows, though, allow you to have some kind of sound system.
Okay.
It's the speaker's the size of a shoebox.
Okay.
Your goal is really not to amplify your voice so people can hear you across the room, because you have to be respectful of your neighbors who are just 10 feet away from you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to think about human dynamics, right? And the psychology. If you're doing a magic show at a trade show, so you're standing behind a table doing a close-up magic trick at a table, and there's, say, 4 people watching. To the passerby at a trade show, that looks like you're having a meeting. And rules of etiquette immediately apply. And the rules of etiquette are, you don't eavesdrop on another person's meeting.
Yeah.
If you have a sound system, that communicates, oh, whatever is going on here, it's okay for me to listen.
So that's interesting, because even though there's anywhere from 500 to 500,000 people there, each performance is an intimate performance for that smaller group.
Right. Now that group might be 4, but hopefully it's 14 to 24 people. Generally, when I gather a crowd around a trade show booth, it's at least 10, hopefully 20 to 30 people.
So how many trade shows are there on a week or a weekend?
Well, this number, for those of you who are not familiar with trade shows, and part of the reason I wanted to talk to you about trade shows is because I feel like it's a tremendous opportunity for the variety artists. Here's a number, 700.
Oh, every what?
So if I say 700, if I tell a person there's 700 trade shows in North America, they go, wow, 700 trade shows every year? That's a lot of trade shows. That's a lot of opportunities. Tell them, no, it's 700 trade shows every week.
Oh.
And that's kind of a mind-blowing number, to think that there's like 35,000 events in North America a year. Most of them don't even have magicians or jugglers. We hear so much about trade shows. There's this mystique about this market, this trade show market. And people think, oh, at every single trade show, there's several trade show magicians. That is far from the truth. At most trade shows, there's no trade show magician.
Oh.
Most of the time people see me at a trade show, they've never seen a trade show magician before. Very novel for them. So let's step back, though. For those people who may not even understand what we're talking about, what a trade show is, I highly recommend you go to the internet and Google the word trade show, and then choose images and look at pictures of trade shows, and you'll begin to understand it. For those of you that are magicians and have gone to a magic convention, and you know what the dealer room is like at a large magic convention. Well, that's kind of what a trade show is like. There's these aisles, and there's these companies that are showing their products or talking about their services. And they have a footprint. It might be 10 feet by 10 feet. It might be 20 feet by 20 feet, or even bigger. Except instead of just having a bunch of magic tricks on a table, they have a very elaborately constructed booth that might cost them $10,000 or $50,000 to build. And they have to ship the booth in a truck, and they have to have it professionally set up. And if you look at these images on Google of trade show booths, you'll begin to see what these structures look like.
It is insane. I've been to a number of trade shows, and some of the bigger companies, they spend tons of money on their booth, right?
Yes, they do. So let's talk about what that is, because it has a direct correlation to what a company's budget might be to spend money on a trade show entertainer.
Okay.
And again, there's a wide variety of trade shows. There's everything from your local trade show, which is done at a Holiday Inn, what is called a tabletop show, which is kind of a lot more like a magic convention trade show, where people are spending minimal amounts of money on a booth, to big fancy trade shows where people are spending $20,000 on a booth, $50,000 on a booth. I have seen examples where people have spent $1 million on a booth. And that includes what they have to pay the association who's running the trade show for the footprint, which might be as big as 50 feet by 100 feet, because it might be the Caterpillar tractor company who has bulldozers in their booth at a construction show. So they need a big, big booth, right?
Right.
That would be an example, where they're spending lots and lots of money.
And then they're taking that booth and going from trade show to trade show on a weekly basis, right?
Not necessarily, not $1 million a week. I did an event for General Electric last June, and I was with one of the meeting planners who plans meetings, and she happened to also plan trade shows, but she just had a certain segment. Right? General Electric is a gigantic company, and they have a division called GE Healthcare. She said GE Healthcare did 500 trade shows a year.
Wow.
Now, some of those are in small booths, some of those are in big booths, but just one company, 500 trade shows a year.
Wow.
So they have many booths that they're moving around the country from place to place, aren't they? Not just one booth.
Right.
It's an enormous opportunity for the variety performer, because a lot of these trade shows, here's their problem, right? Their problem is they spend all this money on this trade show booth, but still, what happens? People walk up and down the aisle, back and forth. They either stop in your booth or don't stop in your booth, depending upon what attracts them. The trade show entertainer can attract traffic to the booth. Mm-hmm. If you were to do a survey of people who exhibit at trade shows, the biggest three things that they're looking for, their top three goals at a trade show are brand awareness, lead generation. That means they want to talk to as many people walking the show and see if they'd be a good prospect to buy their products and services. And relationship building with previous customers, current customers, and future customers. So the trade show entertainer can really help them, bringing crowds into the booth and generating conversations between people walking the show, which we call the attendees, and the staff, the sales force at the booth that is there trying to meet as many people and talk to as many people as possible.
So actually, with all that information, I have a couple of thoughts. First, with the big giant booths, actually with any booth, how is your pay structured into their budget if they have whatever, a $10,000 budget, a $20,000 budget, $1 million budget?
Well, a lot of magicians ask me or email me. I probably get one email a week from a magician that says they're interested in doing trade shows. What's the going rate? Meaning, what should a magician charge?
Yeah.
My answer is not a simple one, because in fact you can find trade shows where a booth has maybe spent $5,000 to be there in a local tabletop trade show, and there's a lot of those. Larger shows, at national shows, somebody's probably spending a minimum of $50,000. Their booth there, transported there, built, their sign, their collateral material, flying in a minimum of 4 people, putting them up for a minimum of several days, feeding them, taking clients out to dinner, doing a sponsorship at the trade show. They're probably spending a minimum of $50,000. But maybe they're spending $250,000, right? It's a tremendous variation. Nobody knows what a client who's never hired a trade show magician before has no idea what a trade show magician costs. But here's what I tell people, and here's what makes the world of trade performing so different than doing an annual Christmas banquet for a company, or doing a kickoff meeting for a company, or doing a holiday party for a company. All of those gigs are something you might do once a year. If I were to say to you, would you do a gig at half price or a quarter of your price because you knew you had an opportunity to work for this company 12 days a year for the next 5 years at your full rate.
Oh yeah, I've done that myself. As you know, I perform for elementary schools, and sometimes I'll have an entire district call me, and kind of the same scenario. Would you discount your price if we guaranteed you 20 elementary schools?
Right.
Well, yes, I would.
Yes, you would, wouldn't you? Right? Right. Here, it's a little bit of a different format. There's a degree of risk involved for the corporate magician, because here it's like you're getting a call from a company for the first time. They've never seen you, or maybe they have seen you, but they want to hire you and work you into their budget. But they thought of you kind of after they've spent most of their budget, and they really don't have what your fee is.
Okay.
They have half your fee. But you know, because you're so good at this, that they're going to love you. You're going to blow them away. And what's going to happen to you is exactly what happened to me with Quebec Core Printing. After the first day, even before the second day of the show, this woman said, I have 9 trade shows on my schedule here for the rest of the year. Can you do all of them? Here are the dates.
That's great.
You can do. And I did 9 trade shows a year for her for the next 5 years until she left the company. So now you go back and you think, okay, did Danny Orleans work cheap for that first trade show? At that time, I didn't, because it was pre-sold and I didn't have to. I gave her a number. It worked for her. And I ended up doing 45 trade shows for her in the next 5 years. Oh my gosh.
That's great.
Unity, right? But, if that scenario were to happen again, I believe it's very important not to let money stand in the way of the first time a magician has a chance to work a trade show, especially if it's a scenario where the person's hiring you and doesn't really know who you are, and thinks this might be a good idea, but they're obviously taking a degree of risk.
Well, if you think about it from their perspective, they've maybe done, hundreds of trade shows before, and they've sat in their booth and people have walked by, some stop, some don't. And if they've never had an entertainer before or somebody to draw somebody into the booth, and all of a sudden they have Danny Orleans or another terrific entertainer to draw people in, suddenly they're seeing 10, 20, 30. All of a sudden, all these people are gathered around and they're getting qualified leads.
Yep.
It's a no-lose situation.
Right. They are thrilled with the traffic, because what they want is people coming into their booth. They want conversations and they want activity. Even if the activity is not really good potential clients, it still creates this inertia in the booth where activity breeds activity. Action breeds more action. And a booth that is quiet remains quiet. A booth that is active remains active. How does that look? So the casual passerby goes by the ABC company and they go, wow, they must have a good product. Look how busy that booth is.
Yeah.
It makes a company look good to have activity. And even that, in terms of their image and elevating their profile on the trade show floor, is all good.
So how do you start that rush? How do you get that crowd gathering at the very beginning?
Well, that's always the challenge. And that's why these companies hire you, because you can generate these crowds. And there's a lot of different techniques. It's been very interesting for me over the years to figure out what works for me and to watch other magicians and jugglers and interactive artists, how they are able to generate crowds. A lot of the secret is, a crowd will beget a crowd. So if you can get the crowd going and you have a little sound system, it's obvious there's something out of the ordinary happening here at the booth, and that will generate the crowd. Money is very effective.
In every routine, money is interesting.
Right, and it's really a popular strategy for trade show magicians to involve the physical holding up of cash or doing a magic trick with cash. Talking about the giveaway, whatever the booth happens to be giving away. I've seen many different types of giveaways over the years, many of them being the fields of electronics. In the beginning, it was iPhones, and now the current giveaway du jour is probably the Echo. People gave away iPads and iPods. There's lots of different kinds of giveaways, and talking about those to generate traffic is good.
Because people love free stuff.
People love free stuff, and part of the culture of trade show is free stuff. That's kind of what keeps people walking up and down the aisles, even if it's a free pen or a keychain or a squeezy toy or a stuffed animal for the kids at home, or entering a contest by guessing how many jelly beans are in the jar to get a free trip. I've seen people give away motorcycles, bicycles, candy, coffee, free Slurpees, free donuts, free warm cookies. All sorts of things can be used. Sometimes the booth gives them away, sometimes you give them away, to begin to generate the crowd. And once you have a couple of people over, if you can begin that card trick or that magic trick process and get a reaction and move smoothly from one to the next, this crowd will form. It's an art form because you can't be overbearing, and what you have to do has to generate the crowd and make them stay for the next crowd while you're increasing the size of the crowd.
How long is a general performance at a trade show as you gather the people up, and how long is each one about?
It varies from performer to performer. A lot of that is based on whether people are standing to watch your presentation or whether they're sitting. Some of these booths are big enough where they can put 12 to 20 chairs in the booth, and the presenter can be standing doing a presentation, sometimes even on a little stage or platform that's 6 to 8 inches high.
So it's like a small theater.
Kind of, yeah, except there's no walls. It's a very open theater, and you'll have a group of people sitting, and you'll have, hopefully if it's done right, then you'll begin to get standing room only, and you'll get people standing perimeter of the seating area, and that's your ideal situation. Again, you'll have a sound system. Usually there'll be a screen, a very large, flat screen, and maybe there's a PowerPoint or a video that you interact with as you're doing your performance. That's also a common strategy. It's very highly stimulating. We've even seen performers, reach into the screen and pull out a prop. We've seen that kind of iPad magic that's become very popular in the past 5 years. That kind of interaction can happen. So to answer the question, so I didn't answer the question. So,
That's
so the question the answer is like 8 to 20 minutes. Longer if they're seated, shorter if they're standing. My presentations generally go about 10 to 13 minutes, although you have to remember who's the star of the show.
The product.
It's the product. It's the company.
Right.
I've had situations where I've had a group of people all come over at the same time. There's clearly a decision maker and his or her followers. Let's call them followers, right? And wherever alpha in the group goes, everybody else follows, and they're basically yes men and women to him or her. So the alpha is, I've had this situation happen. A group of maybe 4 to 6 people come over, they're watching my show, and the alpha all of a sudden, I've only done 2 tricks, and they've decided, because they've heard enough about what I've been talking about, yep, I want to know more about this product. They cut me off, and they say, okay, I'm ready to see a formal presentation of the software now. Where do I go for that? And boom, I'm done. You know what? I've also done my job, haven't I?
Yeah, he actually closed it for you.
Well, it's not a closed sale by any means, but we're definitely taking them to the next level, right?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I put down my playing cards and I introduce them. I walk them over and they all follow as a group. And now they're watching a 15 to 20 minute software presentation.
Sure. Now, if you don't have that person that's in charge that wants to stop the presentation or your presentation and see a physical presentation of the product, is there a technique of closing and getting the qualified leads to the salespeople or to the presentation to the next level?
Absolutely. For example, I have a client called Warescape, and Warescape is a software product. I want to move people from my 10-minute presentation, which is a lot of fun and helps people remember the name of the company, gives them an overview of what the company does. Then I give them a gift at the end, which is a magic trick that has the Warescape brand on it. And then I say, if you're interested in learning more and think this would be a good fit for you, we have 2 presenters in the booth that can take you through the software product, and you'll see how easy it is to use and help determine if it's a good fit for your company.
Nice.
But not everybody goes over. You know what? The client doesn't want everybody to go over. They only want people who self-qualify, who feel they may need this product, because they don't want to waste their time talking to people who aren't going to buy it, who either are currently using the competitors and want it or aren't ready for it yet. They want people who, self-qualify. And so, we're essentially creating this sales funnel, right?
Yeah.
While I'm doing my presentation, one of the people in the booth, their sole job is to walk around with a scanner. It looks like an iPhone. And they hold it up to the person's badge. They're wearing a barcoded badge, and they scan it. So we know everybody who comes through our booth. So maybe they end up with 100 and 200 leads.
Mm-hmm.
Now they take those leads and they follow up. That becomes their sales funnel. And some of those people watch a formal presentation, some of them don't, but everybody's contacted, and maybe they get 2 sales out of that trade show. 2 sales for this company are worth, the first year could be worth anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000.
Got it.
So what's the ROI, the return on the investment? This company spends $20,000 to $50,000 to be at this trade show. They pay Danny Orleans. They're thrilled to have them there. They double their lead count because I'm there. Maybe they triple their lead count. And they know they're going to get $50,000 to $100,000 in sales for just the first year.
Sure.
Software in this industry, software isn't sold where you buy it and you walk away. It's licensed. So these companies pay per year for the software. They're taking out money, lots of money. For this company, it's a no-brainer. And that's why they do these shows over and over again. And that's why I've been working for them for 8 years.
One of the secrets that you just revealed is one of the important things is not just you getting people to the next level, but gathering those email addresses of the qualified leads, because you're talking about the making 50,000 or 100,000, doubling your money or a big ROI, but they also have those leads for the future. So not only is it 50,000 or 100,000 the first year, it could be that the second year, it could be even more people become qualified with that list that they've gathered.
Absolutely. And that's why companies do trade shows. But this is why they need to have traffic in their booth. It isn't enough just to set up a fancy booth. They need to maximize the number of conversations they can have.
Yeah, and not only that, a lot of people or a lot of companies aren't willing to buy on that day or make a commitment on that day. So if the trade show company is following up, then maybe in the future they will be able to make that decision.
Right. Or maybe, maybe they come back the next year or the year after that, and they come back and they go, I was here last year. You were great, but I brought my friend with me, my colleague, show him what you showed me last year. So they'll come back to see me again and again. Clients love that when they realize that the magician they hired is actually a destination. Now their booth is a destination because they've hired a magician.
They love that. So now when you get the phone call, how do you prepare? How much product or how much of the company do you put in your presentation as you're getting it ready for the trade show?
In my opinion, that is the real secret becoming a successful trade show performer. Mm. If that is done well, that's what differentiates the person who's a full-time trade show performer doing 25 to 30 trade shows a year versus the people who just get an occasional gig at a trade show. You're doing it right if at the end of the day the company is rebooking, or the company is saying, okay, here's our trade show schedule for the year. We want you for all of these. Mm-hmm. That's when you're doing it right. You're doing it right when you're working for a client year after year, and 90% of your business is repeat business. That's how you're doing it right. The answer to that is, to your question, however, is how do you do that is very complicated. And that's one of the things that I'll be doing in the course that I'm going to be teaching. I'm creating a course because a lot of people have asked me to work with them and helping them become a trade show magician. And I've worked with people one-on-one doing this. You know, I do it via a video conference call.
Okay.
But I'm going to try something different this summer where I'm working with classes of people. And it'll make it more affordable, where they have a class situation, and they'll also be able to share ideas with other people who are interested in doing this.
And that'll be coming up this summer, you're putting that together?
I'm looking to do it in July, because that happens to be a time of the year where there's just not a lot of trade shows. Even 700 trade shows every week. July is a very slow period. That 700 trade shows every week is an average.
Yeah.
The really slow months tend to be July and the last 3 weeks of December. I've had a lot of people ask me about this, and so I'm going to be doing that. And the website will be Trade Show Presenter Workshop.
Trade Show Presenter Workshop.
.com. You know, that website will be developed. There's nothing developed on it right now, but it'll be developed over the next few months. And I'm going to be using that as a place where people can learn about the workshop that I'll be offering, which will be a multi-week workshop, which will have homework and how to build a website to appeal to this market, how to do the physical presentation, and how to get the clients. So I'm going to be covering that in a lot of depth because it's difficult. But I will give you one hint. I will say one thing about it.
Sure.
People do wrong when they want to create a marketing message. Most people will do the trick. Let's say they're doing Hundy 500. And there's different versions of turning $1 bills into $100 bills.
Okay.
If you're going to do that trick, most people will do it. And as soon as they've done it, then they talk about the financial benefits of working with a company. They talk about how the company's product is going to help them make more money. But that timing is completely wrong. After somebody's seen a magic trick, all they can think about is, how the heck did that guy do that? Mm-hmm. Where did those dollar bills go? Where did those hundreds come from? Oh my gosh, I wish I could turn dollars into hundreds. That's where their head goes when they've seen a magic trick. Wishing they can do it, and how did that work?
So what do you suggest?
What I suggest is, and what I do constantly throughout my presentations, is you get to the point, you think about your magic trick, and you think about what's the climax of this magic trick. The climax is the visual transformation of the dollars to 100. Well, you tell people you're going to do it. Now what happens? You have their attention. They are now listening and watching very carefully, and they are open to anything you can tell them. That's the point when you say, yes, these dollar bills are going to turn into hundreds. We're going to help you make more money or save more money, because here at Warescape, we can help you improve your bottom line, because we can help you build your data infrastructure more quickly, and that will save you money.
Nice.
Right? So there's the message. And people, you have to remember, people are not listening to me seriously when I'm doing a magic show. This for them is very funny. Why is it funny? Because there's a frickin' magician talking about software. For a person that is an expert in the software field, this is hysterical.
Yeah.
And a magician can do magic tricks and talk about software or the advantage to using a certain kind of software at the same time. It's like watching somebody pat their head and rub their tummy at the same time. It's funny.
That's amazing.
And we as variety entertainers forget how a person in the corporate world feels and thinks when they're watching us do a corporate magic show or include a corporate message. To them, this is very amusing.
Okay.
Not serious. We think, oh, we're being all serious. Most performers out there, when they're doing a corporate presentation, feel like, oh, I have to be very serious about this because this is the corporate world. Au contraire, not true. This is very funny to them. But through humor, we're able to hold their attention and communicate a marketing message.
Well, let me ask you a couple of personal questions then. What is your favorite type of trade show to do? That's personal, right? I switched gears on you.
Yeah. No, it's not completely personal. I thought it was going to be a lot more personal.
No, we'll get into some more personal things a little later.
Yeah. There's so many different kinds of trade shows. I mean, it's virtually every industry you can imagine. Banking, construction, oil and gas.
What is that one when you get the phone call, you just say, yes, I'm glad it's that industry?
The restaurant show.
Oh, why?
Why? Because it's a food fest. What do you think goes on at restaurant show? Food sampling. Everybody has food, drinks. Budweiser is there. Michelob is there. All sorts of craft beers are there. Every wine company is there. Pepsi-Cola, Coca-Cola. Dunkin' Donuts are there. Every company that makes every kind of food is there with master chefs. They fly in celebrity chefs that are baking and cooking and grilling food, and they're giving it away. It's crazy. You eat your way through the show, going from one to the next. It's so much fun.
So in between presentations, do you walk up and down the aisles and gather up some food?
Yes, I do.
I would.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Now, when I work that show, I generally work for a company that doesn't have food. Right? Why? Because they have no food to attract people to the booth, do they?
Right.
I've worked for 3 different companies at that show over the years. My best client was American Express.
Oh.
In the 1990s, I did shows for American Express. Why are they there? Because they want people who own restaurants, and those are the people that are walking the show, to accept the American Express card. So I did shows for them in the booth talking about the benefits of accepting American Express.
Now we're going to move on to something called Fact or Something John Just Made Up. Does that sound like fun?
Fact or something John made up. I'm ready.
That's me, John. That's right.
Is it fact? Or is it something John just made up?
Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to give you a little headline, and you're going to tell me whether it's true or not. And if it is true, tell me a little more about it.
So this is something you've researched, I take it?
Maybe. I guess you're going to find out, aren't you?
I'm ready.
All right. Headline number 1. Danny and his wife, Jan, installed a trapeze in their daughter's bedroom when she was 15 years old, and now she's a professional acrobat touring at Renaissance fairs, festivals, colleges, and cruise ships.
That is true.
Oh, tell me about that.
Well, my daughter loved acrobatics when she was a young teenager. And we used to take her to circus shows when she was a child. She really became fascinated with the circus, and she did some gymnastics, but got much more interested in circus as opposed to gymnastics when she was a teenager. There was a little circus school not too far from us, and she was going there twice a week, taking the L there as an after-school course. She told me, the only way I can get really good at this, Dad, is if I'm doing it every day, not twice a week. Mm-hmm. So she was interested in what's called static trapeze, which is not the swinging trapeze that, we may associate with like Ringling Brothers, but static trapeze, where the artist does different poses and different stunts on a trapeze that doesn't really swing that much. And we were fortunate that she had a really high ceiling in her bedroom. It was a vaulted ceiling, and we were able to install a trapeze in her room. And
oh, wow.
And she practiced every day. Her strength increased enormously, and she was absolutely right. She got really good because she could practice every day. And long story short is, after high school, she went to a circus school in San Francisco, and she met someone to become her future partner. And now the two of them tour as a two-person company doing Renaissance fairs, cruises, colleges, and festivals, and some corporate events too.
Wow.
The company is called Acrobatrix.
Nice.
TRIX at the end.com. If you go there, you'll see their website and their videos.
Nice. All right, we're going to go to headline number 2. In the middle of a trade show, a kangaroo got loose and was running through the aisles, scaring the pants off the attendees.
I've had a lot of crazy things happen at trade shows. I had my client's booth caught on fire once at a trade show. Yes. I've been at a trade show where there was a complete blackout. All the electricity stopped working for a little while. I've had trade shows where it was freezing cold in the room, or just the opposite. The air conditioning didn't work in Vegas. It was too hot to be in the room. But no kangaroos. Never happened, John.
Yeah, I did make that one up. I was just entertaining myself for that one, actually. All right, headline number 3. Although Danny's done over 10,000 trade show presentations, he's never given away the $100 bill during the $100 giveaway.
Never given it away. That's true. Never gave away the $100 bill.
Well, what is the $100 giveaway? What is that?
So I took Eugene Berger's sponge ball routine, which he published in one of his early books. And I added this idea of, he makes it a guessing game. At the end, he's loading like 31-inch sponge balls in his hand. I took that idea and said to the spectator, if you can guess how many are in there, I will give you this $100 bill. Mm-hmm. We have a spectator, and I put the $100 bill in somebody else's hand. I make them in charge of it, so that they have the money. So seems more fair and on the up and up. They've never guessed the right number, but once a person didn't really understand that there was a language issue.
Oh.
They thought it was a gift to them, so they walked away with it.
Oh no!
So that has happened.
And, wait! Did you just let them go, or what happened?
Well, trade shows are very dynamic situations, aren't they?
Yeah.
30 people crowded around a booth, lots of distractions, lots going on. We're scanning badges. People are asking questions. Yes, they walked away, and by the time I looked up, they were gone. Where did they go? What was that person's name? What did they look like? I don't know. I've done 20 shows that day. Everything blurs. But you know what? For me, it's part of the risk. I see that $100 bill as just being a prop. It's a thing. The money giveaway is a really great way to get crowds, and it's worth the risk for me, even if I have to give away it. But I've worked out ways over the year where even if they guess the correct number of balls, I make sure that when we're counting them, that number changes magically without their knowing.
And they don't even know what happened.
Yeah, that's one of the secrets I'll give away in my book.
Okay, we're going to go to the last headline. Danny had to rely on his children's performance chops when a trade show ended up being a bring your child to work trade show.
I did,
Wait, I made that up.
You made that up?
Yes.
Oh, that's a good one though, because as we mentioned earlier, there's all these different vertical markets for trade shows. The automotive trade show, right?
Yeah.
The oil and gas trade show, right? All the restaurant trade show. Well, there's also healthcare trade shows. Mm-hmm. Many subcategories, and one of those trade shows is a trade show designed for pediatricians.
Oh.
Now, pediatricians are all about family medicine, right?
Yeah.
And it was in, I believe, I did it several times. One of the times it was in Orlando. And it was a time of the year, I think during President's Day. So there was a school vacation. So all of these doctors brought their spouses and their kids to go to Disney World during the day.
Oh.
Because it's all about kids. They have to be open. Usually these trade shows say no one under 21 allowed. But at this trade show, everybody was bringing their kids.
Huh.
I, had to include children as part of the performance. But, my act is very understandable for kids. I'm not doing heavy mentalism.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing props with people write their names on playing cards, and the playing cards move, from one place to another. Dollar bills turning into hundreds, sponge balls. Children understand that. Even children who are 7, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old understand that.
Sure, it's very visual.
Oh yeah, very visual, and I'm funny, and I wore brightly colored ties, and it worked out great. I could still communicate the marketing message for the pharmaceutical company that I was representing and entertain the kids at the same time.
That's perfect that you had those skills and were ready to go.
And the client really appreciated it.
This is the first time I've done it, really.
That was fact. Or something John just made up.
All right, we're going to move into our fan questions. We got like a few fan questions there, Danny.
Good. Let's do it.
All right. Michael Worsham, an amazing entertainer out of Maryland, asks, does all your trade show magic have to be themed to the company, or do you get to do any just plain old magic?
There seems to be a misunderstanding about magicians who have heard about trade shows but not really done them. So the answer to the question is, yes, it has to be themed, but not as much as you think. By that I mean, not every prop has to have the company logo on it. Not every routine has to be built, with this very complex message.
Mm-hmm.
If you refer to the company or refer to the product in a one-sentence talking point per magic trick, that can be enough. That can even be more than enough at times.
Yeah.
For example, I'll make a signed card, disappear and reappear in an impossible location.
Okay.
And I can say, as the card is being pulled out of the impossible location, or just before it, because remember my strategy about always giving the message, just before the moment of climax. The fact that I can make this card travel from point A to point B is amazing. Wait till you see how fast we can do blah, blah, blah at blah, blah, blah company.
Right. So they're hearing the message instead of...
They're hearing the message, but did you see that was one sentence?
Right.
All the rest can be the regular magic trick that you do.
All right, so we'll go on to the next one. Chris Shepard, a terrific SoCal magician, he actually asked about 5 questions, and I think you've already answered all 5 of them.
Okay.
So I'm not even going to ask.
Good for me.
Good for you. All right, so Addie Merritt, known as the magician Billy Bongers, asks, how on earth do you get into the trade show market?
Breaking in is really difficult now. I mean, when you think back to how I described my first trade show, it was a referral from another magician.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a conversation with the decision maker over the phone. I quoted my price and I got the gig. Did she ask for a video? No. Why? It was 1992. Videos existed, yes, but you couldn't go onto the internet and see one at that point in time. So now, really and truly, a person who's in charge of hiring entertainment for a trade show booth should be smart enough to ask for a video. And if there isn't one, they really shouldn't hire you, because all they have to do is type in trade show magician into Google, and they're going to get tons of names. And they'll find people that have excellent video.
Mm.
So the challenge is for the magician to get the video, but you can't get the video until you've been hired to do it.
Right.
Classic catch-22. situation. However, there's still ways to do it. And that is, actually about 10 different ways on how you can get a trade show, even though you've never done a trade show. And that's one of the things that we'll spend a couple of hours talking about in the course that I'll be teaching this summer. To give you an example of a couple of ideas would be this, would be one, cross-selling yourself as a trade show performer to a client that you already work for. Maybe somebody you do the annual Christmas party for. Go onto their website. Do they exhibit at trade shows? Find out. Find out who at the company is in charge of that. Maybe it's somebody that's already seen you. Maybe it's the person that hires you for the Christmas party too. Ask if they do trade shows. You have a relationship with them. They're not even going to ask for a video. Just talk about it with them and say, I can use my magic to help draw more traffic to your booth. You want to try that at your next trade show.
I call it something similar. I call it cross-marketing. When you're trying to get into one market from another market, try to figure out who from that market you're trying to get into, who you're performing for in the market that you're currently.
Right. You're doing it with an existing client, somebody that you have a relationship with that thinks you're a great magician.
Yeah.
Or a great juggler, And then another way to do it, if I can give one more example, would be just find out if you have a friend, a muggle friend that has a normal 9-to-5 job that works for a big company or a small company even companies that have 20 employees exhibit at trade shows. Find out if they go to trade shows. They're a friend of yours. They know you're a great magician. Whenever you get together, you're always doing these magic tricks. They know that you do gigs. Maybe they've hired you, maybe they not. Find out if their company exhibits at a trade show and pitch them. Mm-hmm. Maybe you can have a meeting with them and get the gig. It's the big challenge. It is the big challenge, getting that first gig. And once you get that first gig, you have to document it. You have to have a photographer come in and show you at the trade show, take pictures of you, getting good photographs of you with crowds, even if they're small crowds. It's a start for you. And you can use that to generate more work.
And for more information from my friend Billy Bonkers, in July, Danny's going to be putting out something on tradeshowpresenter.com. So make sure, keep an eye on that. In fact, what I'll do is I'll put that on my website.
Trade Show Presenter Workshop.
Oh, workshop. I'm sorry. Thank you. Tradeshowpresenterworkshop.com. Right. And when you release that, I will put it on my Facebook group so Billy Bonkers can take a look and just click on the link and go right to it. Excellent. Well, thank you, Danny. You have been so giving and you've given us so much great information. Is there anything you want to plug before I let you go?
Gee whiz. It's not really a plug, but, for those of you that are interested, if you are interested in learning more, there's very few really good books and resources out there to give you more information. The best one on the market right now is a book by my friend and trade show performer Seth Cramer, Modern Trade Show Handbook. It is not really available in magic shops, but you can, if you Google it, you can go to Seth's site and buy it from him directly, moderntradeShowHandbook.com. Sometimes I have a couple on hand, and I have sold them as well. So you can email me at danny.orleans@gmail.com. If I have any, I'll be happy to sell them to you also. I think they're $50 plus $5 shipping. Also, my friend Harrison Carroll, who was a very busy trade show worker in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, he put out a course, which is an online course. It's not interactive. You watch videos and there's a few downloads. That is also a pretty good resource. But you do need, it's like taking a college course online. You do need the patience to watch it and really commit yourself to it.
Okay, maybe I'll put that link plus, of course, your email address on your show notes page so someone can just go there and take a look, click on it, go to town.
I'm certainly happy to answer any brief questions that people may ask me, want to communicate with me as well. They can certainly email me or find me on Facebook.
Great. And make sure everybody out there join my Facebook group because you can ask questions of my guests. I'll put a picture of them and say it's Q&A time. And thanks to all my variety artists. If you found this podcast valuable, share it with your friends on your social media.
Thanks, John, for having me on the Variety Artist Podcast. It was great to chat with you and great to share all this information. I hope that what I've talked about today helps people and gives them a better understanding of this tremendous market.
Well, I got to tell you, I learned a bunch, and I appreciate all your time, Danny. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Make sure to tune in next week when I interview Avner Eisenberg, known as Avner the Eccentric. He is truly amazing also. That'll be dropping next Monday, so make sure to download it on your phone or mobile device. Now go out and book those gigs, make some money, and have some fun.
That's all for this episode of The Variety Artist, but your journey continues on our website. Go to thevarietyartist.com for more strategies, insight, and resources, as well as show notes on today's guest to assist you in your career. We'll see you on the next episode of The Variety Artist. But until then, go out and book those gigs, make some money, and have some fun.